Okay, so in this video, we're still in chapter 5, and we're going to talk about the specific types of epithelial tissue. Um, Simple squamous epithelium is one layer of flat cells. It's very thin, and its function is to allow rapid movement of molecules across the surface. So we're going to find it lining the air sacs of the lungs. That's the main place that I want you to remember. It also lines your blood vessels, which is also to get molecules like carbon dioxide and oxygen through, and then some body cavities. And we can see here's simple squamous right there, the green. This is the connective tissue underneath it, so look in the green here. That's showing you loose connective tissue underneath it, and above it is the simple squamous. Simple cuboidal is a single layer of cube-like cells. They're about as tall as they are wide, like we talked about before. They are ideal for absorption of nutrients and secretion of different secretions. So where do we find it? In the thyroid gland that releases thyroid things. And then the surface of the ovary, walls of kidney tubules. Okay, so we're going to see it in the secretory regions of most glands, in the ducts. So if a gland or duct needs to secrete things, it's going to be lined with simple cuboidal most of the time. And here, again, is in the green what the areas look like. When you see a circular area like this in tissue, this middle place is called the lumen. You can see the lumen of the tubule, that opening. Next is simple columnar. It's a single layer of those column-like cells that are taller than they are wide. Again, they're ideal for secretory and absorptive functions. And then there's two different types, non-ciliated or ciliated. Non-ciliated contains microvilli, which is that brush border fuzzy structure, kind of like a toothbrush. It contains unicellular glands. Most of the time they're goblet cells. Goblet cells secrete mucus when it's mixed with water. And most of your digestive tract, from your stomach to your anus, so your stomach and then your intestines, are lined with non-ciliated simple columnar. In green, this is what it looks like. So elongated cells there. And in between the cells, sometimes you'll see these goblet cells that secrete mucus. I don't know why my photo is pausing, by the way. Simple columnar that's ciliated, so the same shape, except there's cilia on the top of the apical surface, and the cilia is there to move the mucus where it needs to go. So we're going to see this in the bronchioles, which are in your lungs, or the tubular structure within your lungs. So to get things out of your lungs when you have a lower respiratory infection. Uterine tubes, they connect the ovaries to the uterus, so to move the egg towards the uterus. They help move the oocyte, which is really kind of cool. You can see, look at pictures of that. You can see the cilia doing that. And here is the simple columnar, and there's the cilia on the outside. Cool. All right, pseudostratified, again, appears like it's multiple layers, but it's actually one. All the cells have direct contact to the basement membrane. They have an apical surface, but their nucleus is at different levels. Again, we're going to see it ciliated or non-ciliated. Ciliated have mucus cells. They're going to trap foreign things. Where do we find this? Large passageways of your respiratory system. So like your trachea. And it's going to get the mucus. The cilia is going to beat up in this case. Non-ciliated are very rare. Is very rare. Protective functions. We're going to see it in the male urethra and the epididymis, which is the male reproductive system. Here's what it looks like. Pseudostratified. See the nuclei are at different locations. And we see the cilia. Stratified squamous is one of my favorites. Multiple cell layers. The deepest is only in the contact with the basement membrane. Okay, the lower cells closer to the basement membrane are more cube-like, and as the cells go closer to the apical surface or the outside surface, they become flattened or squished. So the purpose of this epithelial tissue is protection from abrasion and friction. Again, like I said before, the cells in the bottom layer continually replace the cells at the top. And that stratified squamous can either be keratinized or non-keratinized. Keratinized is like a special protective coating on the top layer, and it's kind of like turtle wax. It prevents weathering or water getting through. Keratin is a protein. So keratin, if cells are filled with keratin, they're dead. So a good example of stratified squamous epithelium that's keratinized would be your skin, your hair. All right. So here, this wavy purple line, woohoo! Epidermis is stratified squamous epithelium. Epidermis is below. Non-keratinized stratified squamous, all the cells are alive. Okay, so there's no keratin, no dead cells. Their purpose, they're going to keep your tissue moist. They secrete saliva, mucus. So it's going to be in your oral cavity, so your mouth, part of your pharynx, which is the back of your throat, your esophagus, the vagina, and the anus. Non-keratinized. Stratified cuboidal has many layers of cube-like cells, forms tubes and coverings, protection and secretion. We're going to see it in most exocrine glands, many layers of cube-like cells. So sweat glands in particular are something to note. All your sweat glands, multiple layers of cube-like cells. Here we can see. There's one layer of cell nuclei, there's another layer. Here's one cell. Okay. Notice that it has a free surface and the basal surface. Stratified columnar is very, very rare. There's an apical surface, and then there's a basement membrane. We're going to see it in your salivary glands and then some parts of your male urethra. Stratified columnar, so 2 layers of column-like cells. Here's a closer view of that. Transitional, this is the one that changes from cube-like to flat, just in the urinary tract. When your bladder's not full, it's more relaxed, so the cells are larger and rounder. And when it's full, the cells are more stretched, causing them to be flat. Okay. So, right there. Oops. So the different parts of the urinary system. This is the ureter, the tubes that carry the urine from the kidneys to the bladder. It all is capable of changing shape. Just more images of the bladder. So again, to review the purposes of simple epithelia, better designed for diffusion, things in and out quickly, absorbing things, secreting things. It's very thin compared to stratified. Stratified is for protection. Glands. Glands are oftentimes found in epithelial tissue. They secrete substances elsewhere or from elimination. They could secrete mucus, electrolytes, hormones, enzymes, urea. Glands can either be endocrine, that secrete hormones directly into the blood, or they can be exocrine. Exocrine, there's forms of what's called an invagination from the cells. And the vagination goes down into the connective tissue, and secretions are secreted to the outside via a duct onto the outside layer of the epithelial tissue. So sweat glands, mammary glands that secrete milk, and salivary glands. They can either be unicellular or multicellular. Unicellular don't contain a duct or an extension of it. They're very close to the surface, and most common type is a mucus cell. Multicellular contains ducts, and I'll show you some pictures here. So here's the duct of an exocrine gland, right here, a duct. And then the area below that area is called the secretory portion. This is responsible for making the secretions or secreting them into the lumen of that duct. They can be classified by how they look, their anatomy, and then their method of secretion, so physiology. So anatomy, there's either simple glands or compound, so unbranched or branched. Then the shape of the duct. Is it the secretory portion the same size as the duct? Or is it acinar, the secretory portion is like a little sac? Tuboacinar is both. So here's what they look like. Simple tubular, simple branched, simple coiled tubular, simple acinar. See the little, that looks so good right there. Cup-like. Simple branched acinar. And then compound glands. Many ducts here, see? And then it branches further. Compound tubular, compound acinar, and compound tubuloacinar. And then glands can also be classified on how they work. Merocrine, apocrine, or holocrine. Merocrine, think of liquid secretions. Holocrine, whole cells. And apocrine is in between the two. Merocrine is going to secrete liquid secretions in the vesicles by exocytosis. So your tears, your salivary glands, your sweat, your pancreas, your stomach that secrete gastric juice are all merocrine secretions because liquid is being released from the ducts. Apocrine, essentially parts of the cells are coming off, like your mammary glands producing milk. In that milk is actually parts of certain cells. Ceruminous glands are your glands in your ear that produce earwax. I'm tired. Okay. And then holocrine glands are formed from actually full cells being releasing the cell. The cell disintegrates, so it's a mixture, viscous mixture of cell fragments and the product that your body is making and releasing through the duct. So oil glands in the skin, also called sebaceous glands, are an example of a holocrine gland. And this just shows those three: merocrine, liquid; apocrine, you can see parts of the cells like mammary glands; and then whole cells that are broken to pieces like your sebaceous glands, your oil glands. And then you can review those questions, make sure you can answer them. And that is the end of epithelial tissue and glands.